Welcome and thank you for coming out tonight. This is a liberal arts presentation. We're going to jump around a lot. I have no real script. There's no polished thing. I do have some comments while you're enjoying your dinners that we'll chat about a lot and just kind of set the tone, if you will. But I'd love very much for this to be a free-for-all. In fact, I'd like to introduce our lovely spokesmodel, Samantha, in the back here. And she has a microphone. So if you have questions, and she'll just bring it right over and we'll make sure you can be heard. I also want to share with you, we have a couple of prizes as well, just to get people engaged in the conversation. And our first prize, our lovely spokesmodel will demonstrate the lovely leather Velark binder. Pens and other things. So please join in if you can. Let's try and keep it open-ended here. Everybody in this room is engaged in getting to zero or power of zero in some manner or another. Some are further along than others. Some are newbies. And part of the idea is to learn from each other and discuss from each other. I've had questions coming into the door here, and I know these are the same questions from one person that many of you have. And so let's learn and digest this stuff as a group. The hardest part of this whole process is putting pen to paper and writing out a check to the IRS with 2 commas in it. So that is a challenge. So, partly we're here to commiss a bit too. A little bit of group therapy, if we will. And some of the folks, Mr. Arnold and some other guys in particular, is there other guys we can talk to who are like this? I just want to make sure I'm not, doing something crazy, and other people agree with this concept also. So that's partly why we're in the room here, is check, yes, there are other people that are kind of thinking about this, and we can, share thoughts and ideas together. You'll notice, as you look around the room tonight, that you each have name tags on. And we did a little secret squirrel here thing. Your name tags are color-coded. So those of you who have the white tags, you are total newbies. We haven't collected any data yet. We haven't processed anything yet. You're really entry phases of it. Those of you with the dark blue, we've at least had a presentation of the data. We've implemented maybe a few things. Maybe we've started a LERP application. We might have talked with the accountant. Those with you with red are further along in the process. You've implemented a few of the strategies, maybe even done a Roth conversion. And so that will help you to identify, who's where and what in the process. And now maybe you can gain some insight from that also. I have to keep the compliance people happy. So we have a couple of disclosures to do. First of all, we're going to be discussing material and concepts from the David McKnight group. And he's the author of The Power of Zero. He's really the thought leader for this whole thing. And there's extra copies of the book on the table if you want an extra for whatever purpose, or you want to bring one to a friend or something. Please help yourself. We have more in the back if that's necessary. But the disclosure is Mr. McKnight is not associated with Velark or our back office independent financial group. Disclosure number 2, we're going to talk about tax stuff. I am not licensed as a tax advisor. I can give you generalizations and estimates. What we really need is a qualified CPA who understands this stuff, someone very much like Lucia Schubert, who is here with us tonight. And if you haven't met her, there we are, spokesmodel Emily. Hopefully she can help us to keep our numbers straight as we talk about these things tonight. And number 3, we're going to talk about some life insurance tax shelters, and the disclosure there is not everyone will qualify because you have to be medically insurable in order to use those plans. So some background on this. How did this all happen? And I've even had some questions from people. I've been working with you for over 25, 30 years now. How come you didn't bring this stuff up before? Yeah, right? Yeah. Well, as in any industry, whether you're building jet airplanes or submarines or, an insurance or investments and whatever it is, new tools, new techniques come down the pike, new ways of doing things. And that's part of what this is about. But really what triggered this is COVID. COVID effed up everything, right? And one of the things it did an awful lot of was add national debt and spending in our economy that leads us to believe that might have some problems down the road. So we were talking about it. I think the Power of Zero book was written in 2018. So the concepts were out there, but it really didn't come to the forefront until we added tens of trillions of dollars to the national debt, and now we have that story. I've known that this was an issue for quite some time. I first got introduced to it, believe it or not, in 1999. I was looking through some of my old notes. Those of you might remember back when I was at American Express. And we had a guy come out. He was his name was Tom Mosier. He was one of the senior advisors. I was kind of a junior guy at the time. And I saw in my notes, sure enough, he was talking about filling up your current tax bracket with Roth conversions. So this has been around for some time. It's just that it's become more important now. This is also part of the design of our office. As you know, most of us, we've met in the same way. You came to a presentation, right, at a high school somewhere. And we talked about the kids, and we helped the kids through the process, and they're grown now, right?
Yep, they are.
I just paid my last tuition bill recently. My son, he's graduating this year. Thank you. You know, it's a great feeling, but now this was the design. We're going to work with a group of people that starts at that college funding experience, help them with that part, and then as we transition down the path, we're going to help you with that part too. So we're going to move along with you. You know, this group, I don't know if you remember, there was a seminar at the, it was the Marriott in Hartford, where we talked about a concept of Noah's Ark. There was an advisor I liked. His name was Bill, not Bill Murray. I can't remember his name right now, but he talked about finding a group of 250 people. Call that the Ark, if you will. We're going to rescue 250 people from the rising tides of financial problems, if you will. We can't save everybody, but we could save 250. So you're at least a part of that group, and I think that's the concept. We've embraced and gathered a group of people, and we're going to follow you through as we go. So COVID, obviously, big problem. Lots of stimulus led to a lot of national debt. We're at 34 trillion and counting right now. You know, here's kind of a fun thought. We all know that Social Security and Medicaid has got some problems also. We know that, you know, it's underfunded, all those kinds of things. How much of the current debt is related to borrowing to fund Social Security and Medicaid? I'll call this the first question for our spokesmodel with the beautiful tan binder. Anyone want to take a stab? How much is from Social Security and Medicaid?
I'll take a guess.
Take a guess.
None.
Yes. Woo! Come on down. That's correct. None of the national debt that we have right now is related to Social Security and Medicaid borrowing. It is all related to the TARP bailout, Afghanistan, Iran, the housing bailout, COVID funding. We haven't even got to the really heavy-duty spending yet. We're going to talk about what the problems are for social and Medicaid and so on. We haven't even gotten there yet. That's frightening. Tax rates are likely to go up. And we need a change in paradigm, I think, about how we're going to think about paying our taxes for retirement plans. We owe the money. We do. We just do. The question is, at what rate do we want to pay it? Fun fact, the current 24% tax bracket is less than the future 22% bracket. The current 22% bracket is going to 25. So that's more than the current 24%. So we may want to get ahead of some of those increases as well, and that's why we're talking about this also. For the next question, for another one of the lovely Valark binders, would anyone like to take a stab at what the countdown is on the screen? Yes, sir.
Until January 126.
Woo! Man, you guys are hot. That's exactly right. That's the time until the Trump-era tax cuts expire. Now, we believe the Trump-era tax cuts are not likely to be renewed. Even if Mr. Trump comes back into office, and he may want it to happen, he doesn't write the tax code. It has to go before Congress. And if we have a Republican-controlled Congress, even if we don't, I mean, there's a large impetus not to spend more stuff. And one of them is an article that just came out yesterday that talks about Biden's new budget. And the comment was an insatiable appetite for reckless spending. President Biden's $7.3 trillion budget blueprint would raise one of our taxes to as high as 44.6. That's the capital gains rate. They're talking about bringing the capital gains tax rate in line with income rates. And when the Trump tax cuts expire, that would make the capital gains rate the highest possible rate at 39.6. But there's also a Medicaid excise tax for those who make above certain levels that take it to, what was it, 44.6? So whether or not this budget goes through or not, there are continued pushes to spend, and I think we're going to see resistance from that. I think it would be difficult for us to keep taxes low, even if Mr. Trump would like to see it that way. You know, I had one of the things my American Express guy, Tom Mosier, said, you know, and this really stuck with me for many years, is that 90% of the planning out there is done on saving and investing. Very little of it is done on how to access your money. And at some point or another, we want to, you know, it'd be nice to get the money back out again, I suppose. And so we really don't plan how to do that. And that's part of what this is all about also. We've known for a long time that accessing money from 401ks is an issue. Some of you have been around for a while. We've talked about, hey, you've got a lot of money built up in your 401ks. Even before we were talking about getting to zero and power of zero, we would say this is a massive amount of buildup. And you know, people would say things like, well, I'm not going to access a lot right now. It's not going to add to my income. In fact, fun story. I was talking with somebody recently, and they have a pension, and they have Social Security, and they have a modest lifestyle. And they say, what do I care? I'm only taking $12,000 out of my 401k this year. And I don't foresee that really going up. So what do I care if taxes go to 22, 24, 26? What is that on $12,000? No biggie, right? And I say, yes, but you're forgetting about one thing. And that is, who wants to guess? Required minimum distributions. At some point in the future, the feds will force you to take out a figure from your IRAs and 401ks, and guess what? They have a calculation in mind for you. We think, and Lucia, correct me, I think it's 1/26th of your plan balance roughly in the first year is what they want you to take. But then it's 1/25th the next year, 1/24th, 1/23rd. So the multiple gets larger and larger. Meanwhile, 126 barely is like 3%. So if your account makes 6 and you're taking out roughly 3, it's growing. And it's growing and growing until such time that there is still a lot of tax deferral and you're still taking out big numbers. We've run some of these power of zero calculations, and I know it's crazy to talk about what happens when you're 90, but maybe we should look at it. And I'm seeing distributions, $500,000, $750,000 distributions at age 90. And I was like, okay, I hope you make it that long. I do, really. But when we get there, that's a massive new level of income we will pay taxes on. And then we flip a couple of pages in the book and say, and you still have, you know, 6-point-something million in your 401ks left to distribute. And here's where it gets fun. That's when I see the who's go, boop. As people like, first of all, I never imagined I would have that kind of money. And, you know, that's just what the numbers are supporting. But second of all, to say the taxes that I would pay to take some of those dollars out. And all we're trying to do in this conversation, this process, this meeting, is to get ahead of that problem as best as we can. So I'll tell you also, it's my belief, and you can challenge me on this, I'm not convinced we're getting the whole story from the government. I'm not... Believe it or not, I know, crazy talk. But I don't think we're getting a truthful story. In fact, how many have read George Orwell, 1984? You know, I'm calling them the Ministry of Truth. I'm calling it right now. Is that they will tell you what they want you to believe and want you to hear, and they'll put all kinds of facts and figures maybe to make you believe a certain story, but really that's not the whole story. And over and over again, we have examples of that. My favorite is the border is secure. I like that one. You know, another one is the inflation figures. They're talking about inflation is going up less rapidly than it was before. And they talk about all the various corporations are charging too much. You know what? Do we understand what inflation really is? Inflation is not the cost of things going up. Inflation is the value of money going down. And money is valuable because it's scarce. So when you make more money through printing it or stimulus or borrowing or whatnot, you make the value of a dollar worth less than it was before. That's what's going on. This inflation scenario, it was engineered at COVID times to shore up, difficult balance sheets on different government entities. Your food bill is up 17%, 30%, whatever, so that the state of Illinois doesn't have to exercise fiscal responsibility, more or less. So when we say that inflation is going up less rapidly, I kind of giggle about that because you want to take inflation away quickly, reduce the value of the money supply. And they're doing that, but of course that leads to other problems. Overall, things are just simply going up less rapidly. Inflation is up 17% plus since the Biden administration came into office. And I'm not blaming Biden, it's really COVID. But we have a lot of money sloshing around out there that we got to start dialing it back, and I think we need to have truthful information about what is going on. Payroll and jobs, they're talking about economic employment being up, and that's true. But what they don't tell you is the number of hours worked is down. So is that, valid info? I'm not so sure. Someone asked me recently, I think it was Greg over here, am I a prepper? Do I have like 6 months of food in the basement or something? Because I'm talking like some really crazy stuff here. And full disclosure, I do not. But I am in the Civil Air Patrol, and I am required to have 3 days worth of supplies to deploy. So it's not crazy levels, but I do have some prepping going on. All right, so let's do some other for the final questions here. There's a couple of important dates in our fiscal trajectory, if you will, and I'll start the first one. Something important happened in October of 2026, and the answer is that is when the interest on our national debt exceeded the spending on national defense. So anyone like to guess how many days does it take for us to spend $1 trillion? You're close. How many days to spend $1 trillion in today's budget?
28.
A little more.
30.
More than that.
35.
More than that.
40.
More than that. Keep going. It's higher. Not that much higher though. We're getting close. I'll give you this one. The answer is 100. Every 100 days, we spend about $1 trillion. So if you think about it, that's $2.5–3 trillion a year of spending on our current pace, on top of the $34 trillion that we already have. 2026, we talked about that when the Trump tax cuts expire. How about 2030? And I'll give you a clue. It's from a guy named David Walker. Does anyone know who David Walker might be? He's the former comptroller of United States Treasury. He worked under Bush for a little while, and then he resigned. And he resigned because he says the government and Congress is not dealing with the deficit and the spending in any meaningful fashion that is realistic and achievable. And he gave us a date. He said by 2030, two things will happen on this current trajectory. Any guess on what they might be? Something with taxes has to happen in order to get us out. Yes, you want to take a guess on how much? They have to double. In order for us to get out, taxes have to double by 2030 for this to make a meaningful difference. So we tell people, not only do we have the 2026 thing to deal with, we expect taxes to double over some period of time unless we get ahead of this problem. The other thing he says is the next Great Depression will start. Okay. All right, how about 2031? Something important happens in 2031. Any guesses? Happens with Medicaid. Medicaid? Medicare. Medicaid. What's that? It runs out. That is correct.
Is that a binder?
That's, if there's a binder left, we'll go with the binder.
Just wanted to know.
Vanna White's checking.
Hey, it's my alter ego.
Next one is 2034. Something happens with Social Security. This is actually in the budget and in the congressional, whatever the rules are. 2034, something important happens with Social Security. Yes, sir?
Reduces the 70%, potentially 70% of what you're owed.
You're basically correct. Give the man, what do we have left? A lovely Velar pen. The answer is Social Security gets cut by 22%. You read the book, didn't you, Mark? Yes, that's it. Okay, that works. And then second to last one, 2043, the national debt's projected to hit $53 trillion. And also in 2043, Mr. Walker feels we enter an unrecoverable debt spiral because the interest that is due on the national debt exceeds the tax base that we have to pay it with. So this is a huge issue. It was on 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago. I put a little clip of it on our February market update that's right on our YouTube channel. So yeah, there's lots of data in there that supports, I don't know if it's really going to come true, but I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that we should get more control over our tax story, and that's why this is such a major push for us in this office. I think we're going to get more result from managing taxes than we will from managing investments. I think investments are going to be very challenging in the years to come. Some of you might remember the era from 9/11 through the war and out the other side. It took us 12 years for us to get back to sea level again for where we were prior to 9/11. There's actually a name for it. It's called the lost decade. Market went up and down, but over that 10 to 12 year period, it basically went nowhere. I think we're going to see that sort of a story again. The only reason the market is up these days is because it's returned to the level that it was back in the fall of 2021. It's basically just gotten back to sea level. Yes, sir, a question, please.
You're making me feel like I need to be a prepper.
We might need to be a prepper. Glocks and gold coins and canned goods, yes. I mean, you're not off base here. I'm concerned for the state of our country. I am. I'm hopeful that smart people will figure this out. And the more we tell this story, I think the more smart people we're going to have out there that insist on something being done. But I do, the solution is raise taxes, cut spending. Both of those things have to happen. Imagine what the impact will be on our investments and our economy and our market. It's basically austerity. And so I think as a group, as the ARC, as the 250 people, we should start to prepare for that. I'll show you that there are ways we can get through this, but the first step is to acknowledge the issue, and that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to show you a couple of resources. Well, looks like food is coming out. That's good news. So obviously, on the VALARC webpage, as always, if you go to our main page, our most important data is always streaming across the front. If you haven't heard yet, David McKnight will be our keynote speaker at the client dinner, which I think is really, really cool. But if you ever want to, just go to the Getting to Zero page here, and it brings up, current debt, but also, some basic reading. The videos, I think, are really useful. I did this one here, just to be kind of wackadoodle. I read a book from Mr. Beast. Does anyone know Mr. Beast? He's like the biggest YouTuber, makes, some insane millions of dollars from his videos. He wrote a book, it says, How to Get YouTube Traffic. So I read it, I did everything he said, There we are. I don't think I'll do that quite again, but it was fun. I had fun with it. The one to the left here was done by our video crew here. By the way, let's give a big thank you to Mr. Kevin Larson and his team from First Light Studios. These guys are phenomenal videographers. If you need a wedding video, talk to Kevin. He's the guy. They do a great job for us. Been working with them for many years. But also, David McKnight down here on the left here has his own version of why do we do this. And I'd encourage you to poke around on some of that stuff. Eventually, we'll probably be talking about LIRPs. Life insurance retirement plans, tax shelters. And that one on the bottom right there, a little less humorous. A little more serious, I suppose, but we break down how a LIRP works, what's in it, how, and so on. And hopefully that will give you some background after we talk about things. I would also encourage you to to look at the YouTube. You will get David McKnight's channel. And he does a really, really good job of
philosophy that what makes us
of doing short little videos that teach you about stuff. I think he read the Beast book also. But if you want to break down why a LIRP, why not something else? What does Susie Orman say about this? Susie Orman hates this stuff. She says if an advisor ever tells you to invest into a LIRP, you should run the other direction and never work with them ever again. And I say, my goodness, is it really like that? I don't think it is. I'm just not sure that she understands the application of it. He helps us to break it down. Obviously there's millions of these things out there. There's got to be a benefit, and these people aren't all stupid, right? So this helps us to understand some of that stuff. I would also encourage you to look at, it was back on our page. Right, if you have any doubt that taxes are going up in the future, take a look at the Tax Train is Coming video. This was done by an outside filmmaker. We don't have rights to it. David doesn't have rights, so they do charge you, well, like $8 or something to watch the whole thing. But you can watch the trailer for free for 3 or 4 minutes and you'll get the idea. I would encourage you, if you have nothing better to do on a rainy Saturday afternoon or something, watch a little bit of The Tax Train is Coming. It's very interesting. And remember, when you watch it, it was recorded in 2018. And then factor where we are today. The whole concept of the tax train is let's get out of the way, right? There was a story I heard of recently where some guy got stuck on the train tracks. He was on Nissan Sentra, narrow wheelbase. Somehow or another, he got stuck on the tracks, couldn't get his car going, looks in the rear view mirror and sees a train coming. He got out of the car, saved himself, and he's on the news the next day, and the news people say, what was going through your mind when this was happening? He says, I saw the train, I got out of the car. And then, David at some of our sessions, he says, well, you remember the Roadrunner, right? And it was Wile E. Coyote's always trying to get him, and it's always the Acme Explosive Company, right? He has a shack, it says Acme on the outside, full of explosives. And he's in there making a bomb for the Roadrunner. Roadrunner figures it out and pushes the whole shack onto the railroad tracks. And the train is, this one, right?
Yes.
The train is coming, he looks out the window, what does the coyote do? He pulls the window shade down. I think a lot of people are pulling the window shade down. I think we should be the people that get out of the Nissan, and hopefully we can talk about that. Really briefly on the process, and then hopefully we'll have a quick break for chow time and go over some questions. Those of you who have been through this know that our first step is to gather a bunch of data. We use Right Capital as our baseline data. We need to make Right Capital working the way that it should first and drive the data with that. Then we have a few other additional questions related to taxation. We take all that stuff, we send it to our friends in Chicago. I have a consultant there, his name is Greg. He does a great job. He does a bunch of math, sends us back a bunch of spreadsheets, a bunch of recommendations. We take that in, we digest it relative to what we know about you, and then eventually you get the binder. Those of you with the blue and the red tags, you've seen the binder. And we go through it, and it is mind-melting concepts. Those of you who have been through it, the first meeting, you're like, right?
Yeah.
And that's partly why we should sit here. And I know, right?
Way understood.
It takes a while to get a grip on this stuff, and there's lots of moving parts. My friend Kathy here, we've been at it, 6 months maybe? A lot of stuff going on there, but it takes a while to get through here. But once it's done, we're usually next scheduling a call with a qualified CPA, our friend Lucia, if you like, or your own CPA. I'm happy to talk with them. And we really want to run some tax scenarios to make sure that what I'm telling you at a 30,000-foot view works at a boots-on-the-ground level. Some people will say, I love it. We're implementing full bore. Let's go, go, go. Other people say, I can't do it. I can't put the pen on the check. So can we do this at a lower level? Yes, we can. We'll warm up if we need be. Eventually, we're probably applying for a LERP. Eventually, we're probably building a portfolio that includes the principal protection plan, some wealth management strategies, and we're implementing Roth conversions. Now we're underway. That takes many years to get through to the other side. But on the other side, in a perfect world, every dollar you have is in a tax-free situation. And I've had people say to me, I can't wait until when I get a paycheck, there's no withholding. I get $5,000. It's not, $3,500 used to be $5,000. It's the full $5,000, and I don't have to put it on my tax return. My tax return is zero. How cool is that? Now I can fish, I can hunt, I can relax, I can write, I can read, I can enjoy my retirement, and that's part of what this philosophy is all about. We call this getting to zero. Getting to zero means getting to the zero tax bracket, but it also means getting to zero worry. Let's stop worrying about investments and risk and taxation and inflation and healthcare. And this whole project is designed to reduce the worry so that you can comfortably live out your lives how you'd like to live them out. And we'd love to help you do that. So while we're here in this stopping spot, any questions or anything I can share with you we can go over? And spokesmodel Sam with the microphone. This is a good stopping point. I know some people had questions. Yes, ma'am?
No question.
No question.
Just sharing information, because that's also part of this.
Yeah.
For those who commute,
Sam, you want?
David McKnight is on Spotify as well. So I have
Oh.
podcasts as I've been commuting.
Oh.
And it's been very helpful. I hope I was loud enough.
Yeah, I'm sure we heard her. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, but that's fine. On Spotify, very good. Okay. I've subscribed to his YouTube channel, and I'm getting updates all the time whenever something goes live on his channel. So that's good. Also, either one works. Other comments and thoughts? Yes, sir.
So Charles, you've been telling us about things that have been written in 2018. It's 2024 now.
Yeah.
What's changed? What's staying the same? What are the strategies? Is everyone still holding the line or anything like that, or still firm? Or
It's still more or less the same strategy. I think just the urgency has gotten more pronounced because of the national debt and budget deficit story. I do know David is working on an updated book. I don't know if it's updated Power of Zero. I think it's updated something else, but similar. At any rate, we're going to get the updates on it soon.
But needless to say, go on YouTube, look, stuff that's on the internet.
Yeah, surf through it. It's all valid. Absolutely.
That's current.
Yes, it is. I think there's date stamps on the videos. Yeah, right. Yeah, other questions? Thoughts, reactions? What do you think? And someone who's been through this, what's been your experience? Would you like to say, Elizabeth? I'm picking on you because I know you're all in.
With the red tags?
The red tags, right? Let's hear from some of those.
Some of us are still kind of,
Sam, microphone. So, Elizabeth, what's your thoughts?
It's been nerve-wracking because...
Is it switched on?
Sam, you gotta turn it on.
Yeah, it is on. Okay, never mind. All right, go ahead.
Writing
There we
a
go.
check to the IRS is painful.
Yeah, that is the hardest part,
I
right?
haven't written the first one yet, but
Right.
I'll be crying when I'm writing it.
Yeah, it's true. And another part of that is there's no urgency at this moment to do it. As the year starts to wind down, it probably is more urgency. Some people are doing a small contribution now, trying to get used to it. But then as we get closer to November, now we know more about what your total tax situation is for the year. And now it makes more sense to take off bigger bites while we still can.
Right, but the alternative is writing even a bigger check eventually to the IRS at
And
a
that's
later time.
and that's a difficult concept to get. But once you get it, yeah,
Yeah, then you realize you really have no choice.
right.
So
Kevin, what do you think? Anything to add?
I'm in. I don't like writing checks, but
Right. Okay. Thank you,
I
Sam.
don't want to write bigger ones.
Well, and that's the idea. Let's try and get ahead of it as best as we can. Yes, sir.
My real, I'm retiring in 2 months.
Yeah.
I want to figure out how to do this and have an income.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay all the bills.
So this doesn't work if you don't have an income and you can't live, right? So we'll talk about some of the income strategies. Without getting too deep into the weeds, we usually have two pots of money. One of them is the principal protection plan that provides future income. The other is a portfolio of mutual funds and stuff that provides current income. Both of them are being converted simultaneously. One of them we're literally burning down a little bit, while the other one is building up funding for when we're done burning down the first. They don't exactly get burnt down, and everybody's situation is different, but yes, there are multiple sources of funding. Everybody's unique in that story, but it doesn't work if you don't have money to live on. So absolutely. Yes. Good thought. Greg, you had, oh yes sir.
Yeah, I think hopefully people can hear me. I have a question about the LURP.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to marry a woman who was 5 years younger than I am.
Delightful.
It may have been illegal back in high school. But now it's fine. Wow. So when they are calculating your rates for this life insurance policy,
Yeah.
how much does age factor against you? Does it make more sense for this to all happen in Deb's name rather than in my name?
The answer is it depends. Yes, age does factor. It's really, what do they call it? There's a new term for it now. It's not you passed away, it's you failed to survive. So what's the statistical likelihood of your failure to survive over what particular time period? Take that times, a reasonable rate of return, and it drives, cost of insurance, all that, Males, we don't make it as long perhaps, and so it's, a higher risk, so more expensive. You're on the right track. But there's a second part of it too, and that is if we're concerned about the long-term care piece, we want to make sure that there's long-term care for both people. And often we find that the gentlemen have the big 401ks from United Tech or somewhere, and the ladies maybe not. So in that case, it makes sense to do the LIRP on the ladies and the principal protection plan on the gentlemen, although there are certainly situations where that's reversed. In a perfect scenario, you got one of each for his and hers. Not every scenario works that way.
Thank you.
Of course. Greg, you had a question when you came in a little bit about that. Did you, I think, about the LIRPs? Or no, I'm sorry, maybe not. Okay.
Well, you and I had that discussion.
Yeah.
I was sad after that.
You were saying.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, Charles?
On the sadness. We'll talk later, he says. Okay. Yeah, Bob.
Will that information on LIRPs be available for us?
Yes, you're all going to get handouts on the full sales material and everything that goes with the LIRPs, combined with the video and everything we can talk about individually. Absolutely, we're going to dig into it. One of the questions that I hear over and over again is, tell me more about the long-term care benefit. And I think that's kind of your thought is if we have an existing a traditional long-term care policy, you pay a lot of money, you wait 90 days if you're sick, and it starts to pay out. How does this compare to that? The answer is it is slightly different. One of the differences is if you take long-term care through the principal protection plan, it takes 5 years to go into effect. They don't want somebody who is sick today firing up something that they can access tomorrow. So there's a 5-year wait before it becomes into effect. But once it goes into effect, it's immediately available if you want it. LIRPs are an acceleration of the death benefit. So as long as you have a policy that's in force, the long-term care is immediately available. And you're able to access the death benefit in advance of passing. Some smart guy somewhere figured out that if you're ill, the likelihood of you canceling your life insurance policy is slim. So the company's going to pay it out as a death benefit. They know they will, so why not just accelerate it and help provide you access to funds when you need it? That's the basic concept. Yes, please. Well, you have to have the right kind of life insurance. Yeah, so this will get built into our strategy here, but it has to be the right kind that has a terminal illness rider is what they call it. And once you meet 2 out of 6 of the activities of daily living, eating, transporting, clothing, bathing, if you have trouble with 2 of those, it triggers the benefit on either the principal protection or the LIRP plan, and now you can receive the benefit. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Charles.
Yes, sir.
You may have covered this when we met, and I apologize, we went over so much information.
I know, it's a lot.
I was like,
that's why we're here.
Yes, so say tax deferred, because I'm also anticipating possibly retiring. So if I convert my tax deferred 401k from my current company to a Roth.
Yes.
The taxes do I have to send a check to the IRS, or can the taxes come out of that?
Great question. The answer is yes and yes. You have a choice. And really this is related to the strategy that we're developing together. Each person's situation is unique. Where possible, if you have non-retirement dollars that you can use to pay the tax bill with, that's to your advantage. To make the math really, really simple, let's say you need $100,000 for your lifestyle, and you went to your 401k and you would draw $100,000 to live on. Well, that's nice, but that's taxable. So you really need 120. Okay, well, the 20 withdrawn also has its own tax. So you really need 125. But the 5 also, so it's really 127. It goes on and on and on. We call it the negative tax spiral. It's better if you can say, I've taken 100,000 and I'm going to pay my 20 out of my CD that just matured.
Okay.
Happy, happy. However, there's LIRP funding. And if LIRP funding is part of your strategy, part of the idea is to take your after-tax money and make that tax-free also. So that's why that goes to the LIRP. It's a balancing act. We'll get into it. But yes, that's a good point. Lucia, do you have any thought on that also, maybe? Whether it's better to take it from before tax or after tax? Ladies and gentlemen, Lucia Schubert.
If you do take it out as withholding from the 401k, that's that much less that you're now converting.
Right, also less makes it to the Roth, correct. Good point too. So yeah, there's a balancing act all over on this. These are great questions, wonderful, thank you. Any others we can do while we're waiting on dinner? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question just in general for the whole piece. You talked about how the government in the country's in trouble because of that. Does any of this help the country get out of
oh, hey, hey now, how you doing?
Help pay to sort of minimize the debt?
Wow.
To me, it feels like, okay, this helps us out, but what does it do for education?
I would like to believe, and I've reason to believe, and everything we're talking about supports the thought that the feds need money. I think they would love for you to convert all of your money in one big happy shot and pay the highest possible tax rate and move on. Because they would like the money now, right? I think so. So theoretically, I suppose it helps. I'm not sure how much it helps. Gosh, a great question though. Pretty altruistic. Well, yeah, absolutely. I love this country. Yeah.
Cover our own needs.
Well, we can benefit ourselves by benefiting the country as well. I just think we got to get this message out more and more and more because we're not hearing it on television. No matter Fox, CNN, whoever you watch, you're not getting the whole story. And the more we can tell our friends and neighbors and carry on the message. Yes, sir.
So back to the micro. My question is on the LURPS. So you're looking for a policy that specifically has this extended care benefit.
Correct.
Thing.
Yeah.
Although it seems to me that all the LURPS have basically a provision where you can withdraw money, which is essentially a loan.
That's correct.
And couldn't you use that for anything? So could that be used for extended care? So why
it could. So you raise another interesting point here. I'll share a case story with you. We have a client who is unfortunately ill today. He's had some back issues and lots of surgery. He would never qualify for long-term care as is. And we're trying to find something for him. And we realize the likelihood of him making it 5 years before the principal protection plan kicks in, 50-50 at best, perhaps. But if we use the principal protection plan, it's designed to provide a high level of income. They already have all the income they need, so this is just another tool to kick in the income to pay the bill. And I think you're on the right track there, that any tool that generates income that you can use to pay the bill is probably a plus. In terms of generating income with a LURP, one of the reasons we work with, I can't say the name for compliance purposes, but you know who it is because they have a true zero-cost loan. Some companies, the whole process is if you take a loan, you're going to take a certain amount out of your cash value and loan it to yourself, and that's no cost. Actually, there is a cost to do it. But they set aside an equivalent amount into a collateral account that earns the same amount of interest that you were being charged. They cancel each other out. Now it's a zero-cost loan. Not every company does that. Some have a cost on the loan that is higher than what they pay on the collateral account. So I think it's important to get the right policy. David has a book called Look Before You LURP. If you'd like a copy, I'm happy to get you one. Or pull it off Amazon. I think it's even on our list there. Yes, sir.
So are the LURP and the principal protection plan, are they joined at the hip or are they mutually exclusive?
Two separate animals.
Two separate animals.
They happen to be from the same company just because we think that company is doing a great job, but they are two separate account numbers, two separate animals, two separate tax environments, two separate applications, two separate fundings.
Okay, so remind us again, what is again the principal protection plan?
Principal protection plan is we call it principal protection because it does exactly that. Whatever you put into it is insulated from market risk. You cannot go down. Market goes down, you get a zero rate of return. No positive, but you didn't go down. Market goes up, you will go up. So there's the principal protection feature. You'll get forward motion and no downturn. At some point in the future, we switch on income, probably after we do 7-10 years worth of Roth conversions, so that when you switch on the income, it is all tax-free. That income has a feature called the doubler that in the event of long-term care, they will double the income that you receive while there's still value in the program. And that's a whole lot of detail, but we can certainly go into it. In fact, by the way, on my laptop, the reason I've got the laptop running is so we can pull up individual illustrations. If you want to look at stuff, if you're willing to share, everyone in this room just about has got some illustration somewhere. We can pull it up, look at it, and say, here's an example. Maybe we'll get to that after the meals go down. This is great. Other thoughts, questions? Yes, sir.
What should our 20 and 30-year-old kids be doing?
What should our 20 and 30? They should be doing a Roth.
Yes.
They should be doing the Roth 401k. They should be doing what we call non-qualified investing, which means not tax deferred. Now, certainly you should contribute in your 401 up to the level of the matching. Free money. Better still if they match it into the Roth. Even better still. But yeah, Roth, absolutely. Regular, boring, generic brokerage account, absolutely.
So my son's got to call you.
I'd be happy to take his call. Yes, absolutely. Happy to do it. Cool. Yes, Greg?
Refresh my memory, how rigorous is any medical or evaluation in qualifying as a LERP?
I will tell you I have been pleasantly surprised by how liberal, is that the word I want? How, not as challenging as I had thought it would be. We've had some people that have had some conditions and they've said up front, I'm not sure. Okay, so we take a little summary, the medications and so on, send it in. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the trial application. And some of them, they came back exactly as we had thought. And someone, actually one recently came back, we asked for standard, they brought it back preferred. So no, you qualify, preferred. Okay. Not to give you more sadness, but we think it's important to get on this train because it will never be less expensive and we will never be healthier. So if we're going to do it, this is a time to engage and to see if it makes sense and if it even works. Very good.
Charles.
Yes, sir.
Who is your understudy for when you retire?
Great question. They're in the back room. I have this question at pretty much every meeting, and it really boils down to what's our succession plan. I intend to do this for a while. It's not like digging ditches or welding submarines. If I can speak and think and look at paper, I'm probably okay. My job essentially boils down to driving around and seeing people. It took a while to get to this point where that's what my job is, but I'm blessed and I'm very thankful that I have that. So I'm going to do it for a while. Besides, I love you guys. I want to keep working with you. Now, we do want to find succession, so Emily is working on her 7. You all have to convince Samantha on the way out the door that she needs to do it also. And my hope is that these two will be the understudy and take over some of the less, we're farming off our school stuff. I've already stopped several schools. I'd like to farm off the whole college funding operation to those two lovely ladies and focus exclusively on PAWS. We're also looking for other advisors that are already in PAWS that are nearby. In case, we don't even finish this conversation, that there's somebody nearby that can step in right away. Yes, ma'am.
So regarding the LERP, I got an email from someone in your office, I think it was Emily, that said, I got an email from Emily in your office about my LERP application.
Yeah.
I went through the application process. I had someone come to the house. It was easy, very convenient. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer and talk about my experience. But it sounds like they're not getting what they need from my doctor. And
Common.
I'm a little uncomfortable reaching out to my doctor to nudge. How do
Right.
I deal with this?
Unfortunately, that's a common occurrence. The doctors are busy. This is not their favorite thing to do. Their admin is running around with their hair on fire. The solution is to call, unfortunately. But we also have...
But apparently it's been resolved. They received it. Emily did.
We also have, our back office that will advocate on your behalf and try and get stuff done.
You're good for now. They received it.
Yeah, I know, right? She'll mess them up.
So we went down to North Carolina, and one thing I found is that if you, we do have a script that we're working on for you all to call uncomfortably, unfortunately, to be like, hey, I'm applying for life insurance, and they're requesting my records. let me know the status kind of thing a little more nicely. That's one thing they encourage because then it makes the process a little bit quicker. Coming from you, because you're the patients, HIPAA, all that fun stuff. I know we had somebody else had forever to get their records to, and that was fun. Yeah. So calling on yourself to your doctor, giving them that heads up, hey, I'm applying for life insurance, if you could just gather my records, and when that request comes in, it's really helpful because it makes that process a whole lot quicker. Gives them the heads up, depending on how big your file is or small your file is. It really helps. But I think we're working on that now. We do have something.
If you're on a portal,
yes.
If you send them a message,
sometimes that will help you.
It tends to get a little faster because you get those people who are actually freaking doing work. So when you call in,
my chart is amazing.
Go,
hey,
Georgina, nobody's responded.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
It has helped.
Yeah, occasionally there are glitches. It's a complicated process. Our industry is complicated. This is why I have a job. This is why Emily has a job. We had one recently, we call it the Boston problem, and that's where all of a sudden all the medical exams started coming from Boston. And like, we have to drive down to see you, and we can only drive down on Sunday. Like, what? How did you end up? There was a software glitch. It's been resolved, but weird things happen sometimes.
Yes, it was a minor glitch that they are fixing, working on. Unfortunately, glitches happen. Technology is a wonderful thing, but also our nemesis.
Very cool.
I had absolutely no problem.
I think
breezed right through. Beautiful.
Piece of cake for you.
Good, good.
You're
Okay.
talking about your LURP application?
The LURP, yeah. Yeah.
So not everybody had, like Roger did not even have to have someone come to the house. They only called for me, and I've had some health issues.
Roger was a Boston.
It was a Boston glitch. He was a Bostonite.
It was Boston.
So what does that mean?
There was a glitch.
You're glitched.
we call it a Boston glitch because literally they're making you go to Boston. No.
That's not going to happen, though.
So is he still going to get an email from someone?
He should, and if you haven't, I believe you gave him a phone number.
That was for Mr. Morris.
He has not.
Yes,
you
so
told me
I will
he
give you a
was
phone
all
number.
set.
Shoot me an email if I don't get back to you on Monday.
Yeah.
There is a phone number to just reach out to them in general.
Yep. Okay.
But actually, I think you're all set. Talk to me after.
Okay.
I think
Good.
you're good.
Without an appointment.
I believe he's all set.
He's really healthy.
Once you get done.
And I'm older.
Keep it that way.
And I'm older.
No changes.
Yes, sir. Mark?
Yeah, so at this point, up to this point, I've generally not been on board with the LURP process. But hearing some of this, I have to ask a clarifying question. I thought the book described that you went through all your years of transitioning your money into a tax-free bucket, and then once it's all in the tax-free bucket, then initiate your LURP?
No, not necessarily. Usually a LURP is one of the first things we want to do for a couple of reasons. We want to get the maximum time of tax-freeness. And second, 7-10 years from now when the Roth conversions are done, you may not be healthy. It may be medically problematic. So we want to get that out of the way early on so it's locked in, if possible.
So how?
Yes?
How do
I'm just going to leave it with you.
We need a separate mic here.
That's all right here. I'm not saying.
Okay.
No, listen.
So I'm just curious if people are willing to share. We have, our 401ks.
Yeah.
We have our savings account. We have mutual funds. Each has
Pension.
different. We have a pension. We're still both working. We still have income coming in. But I feel like, and I'm on board with the conversion. I did the little one in December. Wrote my check.
We survived. You're still breathing.
When we say IRS, we also mean the state of Connecticut. Just don't forget that. So I wrote my checks. I'm ready to do it again for tax year 2024. At the end of the year, I'm willing to go bigger. And that money to pay it is going to come from what I call my savings account.
Yeah.
But I feel like, and that savings account is what gives me
Yes.
the ability to feel like I can live and go on vacation and do a house project and give money to the kids and my grandchild and all that kind of stuff. I feel like I don't want to deplete that
just to save money in the future at the risk of not living today?
Understood. Living today is very important. So that's a common thing that pops up also. Oh my gosh, I'm spending all this money for taxes. I have nothing left for the car and the kids and the whatnot. Remember, when you convert a Roth conversions are instantly accessible.
As long as you're 59.
59 and a half, correct. The 5-year rule is waived, is that correct? Yeah, so conversion dollars instantly available. So you're replacing your existing cash reserve that is taxable down at Bank of America or invested at Merrill Lynch with a Roth account that we call it the Roth IRA. It's a retirement plan, but it's just a name. It's a pile of money that grows tax-free and that you can access immediately. You can literally have the Fidelity Growth Fund in your IRA, sell it, convert it, pay taxes, get it into your Roth, and the very next day purchase the exact same Fidelity Growth Fund right back again, except now it's tax-free forever. That becomes your new cash reserve.
And that's just not, I can't relate to that concept yet, because I'm so used to just, writing bills, having everything goes in savings, right?
Right, right.
That's just how
Anybody else go this way?
Probably everyone, right? Yeah, yeah.
All right. It's a concept. It's stuff to.
Right, and I'm okay with it while we're still working, because we know.
Because you have an income.
We have an income, and we live, we earn more than we spend in today's world. So I'm okay with it while we're working. I'm curious how we'll feel when we're not working.
Yes, these are mind-melting, fuse-blowing concepts because it's diametrically opposed to everything we used to believe. So we'll take some time to get used to it, I suppose. Good. Okay for now? So why don't we just talk amongst yourselves? And hopefully the food will be out soon, and we'll stick around and answer questions and do more stuff on the screen if we need to. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.